I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Anchorage Assembly to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Domboski.
Present.
Mr. Steele.
Here.
Mr. Starr.
Here.
Mr. Flynn.
Present.
Mr. Hall.
Present.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Honored to be here.
Ms. Johnston. Here. Mr. Honeman.
Here.
Mr. Trainey.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Evans.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Ms. Domboski, would you please lead us in the pledge? We have a whole passel full of amendments minutes to review tonight. First are item 4A, the special meeting of November 19.
Move to approve.
Buttons, please. Is there objection to approval of those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, those are approved. That brings us to item 4B, the regular meeting of November 19.
Move to approve.
Is there objection to approval of those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, those are approved. That brings us to item 4C, the regular meeting of December 3rd.
Move to approve.
Is there objection to approval of the minutes of December 3rd? Seeing and hearing none, those are approved. That brings us to item 4D, the meeting minutes of December 17.
Move to approve.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Starr and Mr. Honeman. Is there objection to approval of those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, those are approved. And item 4E, the January 14 minutes.
Move to approve.
Second. Is there objection to approval of those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, those are approved. That brings us to the mayor's report. Mr. Mayor, you're on the hot seat, my friend.
Okay, thank you. And a couple things. On Memorial Day, we had a beautiful rededication of the Veterans Memorial and a great turnout and a fantastic job done by the committee and certainly by our Parks and Rec department as well. They did a great job getting the area prepared for what was just a beautiful, beautiful ceremony rededicating that memorial. And Tim Penitendi and his group just did a fantastic job. And Parks gets another pat on the back of the Louis Palau Festival over the weekend at Cuddy Midtown Park. Literally, I think we had on Saturday and Sunday combined probably over 20,000 people in the park, and just again showing the capabilities that we haven't always exercised before, but now we know that Cuddy Midtown Park is a tremendous asset that properly planned, and then Manager Vacalis and his group did a great job helping coordinate all the various things that it takes with traffic and all the other logistics. So a tremendous event. Coming up on the 21st, of course, is the solstice, and I just want to remind folks we've got another group of really outstanding events for our community coming. The Mayor's Marathon, the Midnight Sun Marathon, occurs on the 21st. Starts in the morning, 8:30 in the morning. For those of you that are training now, trainee and others, I know you're training for this, so it's a couple weeks from now we'll see you out there. And then Downtown Days, which is sponsored by the Downtown Partnership and others, from noon to 6. 4th Avenue is closed down, and there's just a tremendous amount of activities, including the Hero Games, which pits the fire department, the public safety police department, and different military branches in a variety of different competitions. And it's really pretty exciting. It'll be both on 4th Avenue and in Town Square Park. And then finally, we're really pleased down above the Alaska Railroad Depot, a internationally recognized group, the Spin Doctors, will be performing a free concert. So these events all celebrate solstice, but are also part of our centennial events as well. So a lot coming up on the 21st. And then finally, just a note, I think you've got in your file a letter from Alaska Diversified Contractors. They are protesting a bid that has been sent to the bidding review board, so we're cautioned not to have any contact or interaction with the protesters because it is in front of the bidding review board. I signed the order sending it to the board yesterday, so please avoid any contact with the protester. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any questions for the mayor before we move on? All right, just a few things on my report for this evening. First, for those of you here for item 14C, the streets and highways plan, we've got a request for a little more review time, so we'll be continuing the public hearing on that to June 24, our next meeting in 2 weeks. Similarly, those who are here for item 14D, which is the Fairview Improvement District, the administration is working on an alternative proposal. My understanding is it is different enough we're going to have to introduce it separately, so we'll continue the public hearing on that to July 8th so that the administration's proposal can catch up, and then we'll most likely have another work session on the 2 in the meeting Friday, well, probably the Thursday before the 8th because of the holiday weekend. Finally, we'll have an update on Everhard today, and we'll do our final disclosure under special orders, and then AMAT's Technical and Policy Committee meetings have been canceled for June, so Mr. Peterson, our new alternate, you have an entire month to get that much smarter before we drag you into it in July. That's all I had. With that, we're into committee reports. Mr. Hall, you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to announce that the Ethics and Elections Committee will hold their first meeting for this year on June 25th, 12 to 1, room 240. We will make that our regular meeting the third Thursday of each month, noon in that room. So first meeting, June 25th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mr. Honeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Safety Committee meeting for June will be the third Wednesday, which is the 18th, noon to 1, in the conference room here between Chambers and Wilda Marston. I will announce, due to Ms. Domboski's unavailability and a few changes, I believe it's prudent to postpone and reschedule the Transit and Transportation Subcommittee between Anchorage and Mat-Su, which was set for a Thursday at noon, but we will reset a new date and time, and I'll probably get back to you in the next meeting when that will be.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Honeman. We'll get you a wind guard for your microphone.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnston.
Somehow I think my microphone kind of went down the road. The Enterprise Committee will be having a meeting at 11:30 on Thursday, and we will be covering the monthly report from CH2M Hill. And as far as the port, we will also be discussing MLMP's progress as far as their construction project. And then I've asked for a report from our CFO as far as just the financials of the port. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Mr. Steele.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Labor Ad Hoc Subcommittee met last week. We had an in-depth review of the proposed ordinance by Ms. Johnston to revise existing labor law. We allowed for a great deal of public comment to that. We are likely to have a meeting next week. We haven't scheduled it yet. We're awaiting word from the municipal clerk on her discussions with the state clerk's office, which will determine what will happen in November as far as the ballot goes and what costs will be involved. The next meeting should most likely be our last meeting for that subcommittee, and we'll be able to come forward with any recommendations to the Assembly at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Ms. Johnston has a question or a comment on that.
Yes, when we're doing the agenda for our next meeting, the fire department has wanted to further discuss my proposed ordinance, so maybe we could have a part on the agenda for them to bring up their issues. And also, in speaking with, as I was doing some further drafts of my draft ordinance, Mr. Wheeler has some issues that he'd like to discuss and just present to us.
All right. Anything else? Mr. Trainee?
Rules Committee met on Friday. We dealt with 3 community council bylaws that were approved by our committee. We're going to send them on to the Assembly. And then we have a total of 38 community councils, 37 if you don't count Hergwood because they've got a different animal. So we'll end up going through the rest of those and trying to get everybody to get theirs in on time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trainee. Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just another reminder that the Budget and Finance Committee will be meeting on Thursday, June 19th from 12 to 1, and the major discussion will be to review and revise our work plan for the rest of the year. And I think there may be one other agenda item, but I'll send out an agenda ahead of time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Gray-Jackson. Mrs. Domboski.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chair. I'll start with my typical disclosures. The first one being the administration has item 9E5, which is an informational memorandum regarding procurement. And I just want to point out there are multiple AFD items in there. They're miscellaneous. Some are training. Some have to do with computers. Some have to do with acquiring certain pieces of equipment. My husband is an Anchorage firefighter. I don't believe I have any interest, financial or personal interest in these matters, nor does anyone in my household. So I'll let you rule on that. And the second item for introduction is item 9F4, which is acquiring land for a new fire station. Again, while my husband may be employed by AFD as a captain, I don't believe I have any financial or personal interest in this matter, and I will wait for your ruling.
Thank you, Ms. Domboski. As we have historically done, we don't find that there's I don't find there's a conflict for you in participating on this. Are there any questions for Ms. Domboski? Any concerns about that ruling? Okay, Ms. Domboski, you'll be asked to participate in both of those matters.
Thank you, sir.
Trust me, I have some interest in the fire station location, so we'll get to that.
Oh, great. Okay. The next, I would like to make my subcommittee report on the Eberhardt remand. The basic hearing dates and schedule outlined are detailed in Agenda Item 9, Delta 4. With Mr. Starr's disclosure this evening, the initial conflict disclosure process for the Assembly members will be complete. The parties were able to resolve outstanding issues concerning disclosure of documents, except for one email. Special Counsel Joe Levesque and Remand Subcommittee member Dick Traney inspected the document in camera, and Mr. Levesque is preparing the final order on privilege. Special Counsel is working with the parties to establish pre-hearing deadlines to assist the process, and Mr. Levesque is incorporating these into the stipulation and order regarding the remand procedures and schedule. The parties are to prepare a stipulation of facts for the remand hearing. The subcommittee has directed the parties in this case to utilize their own legal counsel to achieve the directives set out by the remand subcommittee. The expectation of the subcommittee is that each party will follow through with the pre-hearing processes and not depend on special counsel's office to initiate their own responsibilities. As to this last point, Mr. Chair, the parties are reminded to work in their common interest to have this matter heard. The Assembly is but one of Mr. Levesque's many municipal clients, and his scope of work is to assist the Assembly. We expect the Municipal Attorney's Office and Plaintiff's Counsel to carry their share of the load on pre-hearing process and to work together to frame the stipulated facts so the Assembly's time and Mr. Levesque's time may be spent towards the Assembly making informed decisions. There's a lot of hard work ahead for the remand before the remand is complete, and we appreciate the parties working with the subcommittee and being responsive to the subcommittee's needs.
Thank you very much, Ms. Domboski. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Starr.
On June 20th, scheduled a committee meeting for the audit committee to review the CAFR reports and the various financial reports coming out of the audit group that we've been hired, BDO. I scheduled it on a Friday for the interest. Perhaps there may be an interest to have a committee of the whole as we will be tendering those reports, fairly complicated ones, on the 24th for approval and acceptance on the 24th of June. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. That brings us to the addendum of the agenda. May I have a motion to incorporate, please?
Move to incorporate.
Second.
Okay. Let me read this in real quickly. We have item 9, Alpha 5, AR 2014-159, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing June 16, 2014 as Motorbike, Motorcycle, and Scooter Riders Ride to Work Day, a.k.a. Dennis Wheeler's Truck is in the Shop Day. Item 9, Bravo 12A, Information Memorandum 79-2014, response to AR number 2014-158, a resolution regarding completion of the East Anchorage District Plan prior to commitment of work on relocation and realignment of Chester Creek within the Muldoon Greenhouse property under Project Management Engineering 07-51, and supporting application for grant extension of time as necessary to allow for the East Anchorage District Plan completion. Item 9, Charlie 5, AM 329-2014, recommendation of award to Davis Constructors and Engineers for the San Roberto Cleven Hoyt Water Rehabilitation for the municipality of Anchorage. That's under Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility, ITB 2014 C019 in the amount of $676,323.50. Item 9, Delta 18, AM 330-2014, change order 2 to purchase order 2013-0212 with Alcan Electrical and Engineering to provide the 2012 Airport Security Improvements Phase 2 construction services for the municipality of Anchorage, Merrill-Field Airport, in the amount of $54,087.90. Item 9, Delta 19, AM 331-2014, recommendation of award to various carriers providing property and excess insurance coverage to the municipality of Anchorage Risk Management Division in the amount of $1,420,349. Item 11, Alpha 1, Information Memorandum 71-2014A, Executive Appointments and Compensation for Blair Christensen, Municipal Attorney 2, Bruce Heislip, Special Administration Assistant 1 in the Mayor's Office, Daryl D. Davis, Management Systems Officer 2 in the IT Department, Gregory Idem, Utility Division Manager number 2 in the ML&P, Jeffrey R. Van Ripper, Special Administrative Assistant 1 in Public Works, Kevin T. Gunnup, the Personal Director in Employee Relations, and we have a single laid on the table item, item 9, Bravo 4A. That's an S version of 2014-148, a resolution of Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding a transfer of ownership, location, and DBA name change of a beverage dispensary liquor license number 2973 and a restaurant designation permit for Eureka Services Incorporating, DBA Blue Coyote, or if you're from the Dakotas, Coyote, located at 508 West 6th Avenue, Anchorage, and authorize the municipal clerk to take certain action. Are there any more laid on the table or addendum items? Seeing, hearing none, that brings us to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve, please?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll start with items to pull. Mr. Starr.
Off the addendum 9, Delta 18 for a conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 9B9, please.
Bravo, sir.
9 Bravo 9.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Ms. Domboski.
9 Alpha 5 and 9 Bravo 12.
Ms. Domboski, my understanding we don't have anybody here to receive 9 Alpha 5. Do you mind holding off on that one?
I'm happy to hold off.
Thank you very much. And you said 9 Bravo 12? Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 9 Apple 3. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gray-Jackson. Mr. Trainee.
Let's see, I need to pull the one with him. 9A1.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee. Mr. Evans.
9 Alpha 4 and 9 Bravo 6.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Steele.
And no items, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Johnston.
No items, thank you.
Mr. Honeman.
9 Alpha 2, 9A2.
Thank you, Mr. Honeman. And Mr. Hall.
No items.
Thank you, sir. I'll go through them real quick, make sure I got them all. 9 Alpha 1, 2, 3, and 4. 9 Bravo 6. 9 Bravo 9. 9 Bravo 12. And 9 Delta 18. Did I miss any? We're not going to do 9A5 tonight. Okay. We're going to approve it. We're not going to read it tonight. All right. With that, would you please vote on the balance of the agenda? Mr. Trainee? He blanked out. I want to restart this one. Okay, try again. No.
It's what it is, guys.
We'll just show Mr. Trainee as a yes. Everyone, if you could vote one more time, we'll make this unanimous, please.
I'm a yes.
It's a miracle. All right, very good. That brings us to item 9 Alpha 1. Mr. Trainee.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sir? Is there objection to that item? Seeing, hearing none, do we have a representative? Is Mr. Hess here? Come on down, Mr.
Well,
Hess.
Hess is here somewhere.
Excellent. Mr. Trainee, take it away.
You were great on this later, Darrell. This is Resolution AR 2014-2042, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Darrell Hess as one of Alaska's First Lady Sandy Parnell's Volunteer of the Year. Whereas Daryl Hess has spent at least 49 years volunteering with his heart over and over again, working to improve our town. And whereas he's devoted thousands of hours volunteering in numerous local programs to improve neighborhoods, including parks, roads, sidewalks, and safety projects. And whereas for a decade, Daryl served as an officer of the Fairview Community Council, including 5 terms as council president, 2003 to 2008. And whereas in 2008 he worked with the city and United Way to secure a day of caring project for Fairview, which resulted in much-needed improvements to local parks. And he personally spent 36 hours over 2 days working the parks with an army of volunteers. And whereas Daryl's passion extends beyond his own neighborhood, devoting time to ensure Anchorage is a viable community, as he served in advisory groups for the Downtown Comprehensive Plan, Chester Creek Sports Complex Master Plan, and Delaney Park Master Plan. And whereas Daryl Hess' commitment to community development, housing, and homelessness were drivers behind his service as the Housing and Neighborhood Development Commission Board Secretary for NeighborWorks, and his current service with the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness, and assistance with Anchorage Annual Project Homeless Connect. And whereas Daryl's passion for equality and social justice and application and appreciation for his hometown of Anchorage and the entire state has led to his service as Vice Chair, Acting Chair of the Anchorage Community Diversity Advisory Commission, Treasurer of the Anchorage Unit of the NAACP, and as a member of Bridge Builders Board. And whereas Daryl spends volunteer hours serving on the Board of Identity, Inc. and our Equal Rights Commission, as well as a member of the Advisory Council for UAA Center for Community Engagement and Learning, along with involvement with the Anchorage One Economy Initiative. And whereas as one who is lauded for his volunteer service to others, which has strengthened our community, now therefore the Anchorage Assembly resolves, this body takes pleasure in acknowledging and appreciating Daryl Hess, who has dedicated his life showing remarkable personal commitment to helping others, as one of Alaska First Lady Sandy Parnell's Volunteer of the Year. Passed and approved, the Anchorage Assembly, the 10th day of June, 2014.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Flynn, members of the Anchorage Assembly, Mayor Sullivan. I really appreciate this recognition. When First Lady Sandy Parnell called me to inform me that I had been selected as one of the recipients for this year's First Lady Volunteer of the Year Awards, I told her that what I love about living in Anchorage and living in Alaska is the incredible volunteerism that we have in our city and in our state. Alaska consistently ranks at the top of states for percentage of volunteers, citizens who volunteer, and the number of volunteer hours, whether it's food banks, assisting with housing and homelessness issues, our parks. I've done a few park cleaning greens and spruce ups. I mean, every day across this city. I knew Beth would appreciate
you'll get
that.
Your turn later.
Every day across this city and across this state, thousands of incredible volunteers contribute an infinite amount of hours making this city and this state great places to live. And in my car I have a bag of lapel pins that I actually got from the mayor's office a couple of years ago, and I carry them in my car. And my friend Jay Jackson designed this pin when she worked for Mayor Mystrom several years ago, and they say Community Volunteer Municipality of Anchorage. And it depicts the municipal seal being held up in a human hand. And to me, this pin epitomizes what volunteerism does for our community. Volunteers lift up this community and make it a phenomenal place to live. And I am proud to be one of those volunteers. Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl. You don't get away that easily. Better hold on.
You're not running anywhere.
Mr. Honeman has Mr. Honeman's first of the people who want to talk to you.
Well, Daryl, congratulations, first of all, for being selected as one of the award recipients. Well deserved, of course. you and I have shared some time in volunteering, and of course, I couldn't hold a candle to you. I know there were
In Fairview.
and Fairview, and where people make the difference. And I appreciate the shirts that I worked so hard and actually ripped a couple of them, working real hard volunteering. Anyway, I know there were a couple of midnights that we were out trying to spruce up a substation, and we were in there working, and you happened to stop by too, so we all were thinking the same: make it shine before we have the grand opening, the ribbon cutting. But more importantly, I've really appreciated your volunteerism on many fronts, as the resolution points out. So I just wanted to point out that across the nation, I think, as of 2013, so this year's hours hasn't really been, but the value of a volunteer hour is like $22.55, and I just happen to know you're probably in the triple digits somewhere in your volunteer hours. Alaska shows at $26.50 an hour volunteer time. So, there really is a meaningful value to what you do, and I really appreciate that wholeheartedly, from the heart.
Thank you.
Mr. Trainee.
Darrell, thank you. Not only all of you thinking the resolution, but you're as our ombudsman. And you're the ombudsman that our constituents call when they've got a problem with city government. And you handle every question with respect, even the people a little crazy. I appreciate what you do because you approach them as if they're sane, and you make them feel as if their opinion counts. And that's very important because you're their last resort for many people. It's called the ombudsman. And you take everyone and get resolution on it. And thank you for reading about 38 bylaws for us. And I appreciate all your effort. And you've got our community councils going on the right track. And we couldn't get them there without your support. So I appreciate all you do for us. Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee.
And Ms. Domboski.
Thank you. I don't even know where to start. This has been the most incredible year. And I have to say, I've spent hours. Darrell's helped me on more than one front with constituent issues. And we've just talked through issues. And he treats everyone with respect, as Mr. Trainee said. But, you know, what I can say to you, Darrell, we had a talk a little earlier, and you know my passion for volunteering. But you, to me, are the role model. You, just knowing you and being around you, you've made me a better volunteer, and you've made me a better assembly member. And I'll look to you. Maybe someday I'll achieve half of what you did, but I just can't tell you how much I respect and how much I appreciate what you've done for our community. And no one is more deserving than you.
Thank you, Ms. Domboski.
And Ms. Johnston.
And you do the stairs.
Thank you very much, Darrell. And, of course, as the person who has the honor of representing Fairview, we really appreciate you being part of our neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn.
That brings us to item 9, Alpha 2.
Move to approve.
Second. Is there any objection? Seeing and hearing none, that is approved. Mr. Honeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Assembly Resolution 2014-144, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing June 20th, 2014 as Juneteenth Day in Alaska. We have someone here for...
Do we have anybody?
Receive?
There we go.
Absolutely.
Some folks.
Whereas Juneteenth is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the end of slavery in the United States, and whereas Juneteenth Day recognizes June 19th, 1865, when Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, to announce the war's end and that all slaves were free in accordance with executive order of President Abraham Lincoln. And whereas it took nearly 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation for word to reach the last group of slaves that were, in fact, free men and women. And whereas this year will mark the 149th year of Juneteenth celebrations and the 19th organized event celebration here in Anchorage. And whereas the Alaska State 22nd Legislature passed House Bill 100 in 2001, establishing the third Saturday in June each year to commemorate the abolition of slavery and to reflect on the suffering and sacrifice endured by millions of early African Americans and to appreciate the unique freedom and equality enjoyed by all state citizens. And whereas a 3-day celebration is planned for the Delaney Park Strip, starting with a Family Day on Friday, June 20th, 2014, and continuing the celebration with live performances, games with prizes, and contests for all. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly recognizes June 20th, 2014 as Juneteenth Day and encourages the Anchorage community to participate in local events to celebrate African American freedom, heritage, and contributions to our American culture. Passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 10th day of June, 2014.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. The
Thank
microphone is
you.
yours.
Thank you for the resolution. I don't know how to say this. There's one spot. We're not on the Delaney Park Strip this year. This year, the event has been embraced by the community. We are at the VFW Post 10252 on Friday, the 20th, the Mountain View Boys and Girls Club on the 21st, and at First CME Church on the 22nd. We are looking forward to next year, which marks the 150th anniversary along with the centennial. We are listed and we have been taking part in the centennial plans for this year and next year, and we look forward to that as well. We do have some people that were older, well, not older, but Alaskan, let's see here, Anchorage residents that went to school with the mayor, went to school with Begich, Senator Begich, I'm sorry, and different people like that are coming back to Anchorage next year to help us with celebrating the 150th anniversary of Juneteenth.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Would you kindly share your name with us so we could put that in our record?
Oh, my name's Gwen Alexander, and I'm with the African American Historical, and I'm the event coordinator, and the event is actually under Juneteenth, Alaska.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Alexander. Mr. Honeman had a question for you before.
Ms. Alexander, could you repeat on Sunday, the 22nd, the CME Church, which
Yes,
location?
it's at 3600 McInnes, and it's from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. We have 3 churches that are getting together, the First CME Church, Leak Temple, AME Zion, and Empowerment Temple, AME Zion, are coming together, and we're going to be doing a historical viewing of the people in African American history that had part in Methodism and also took part in the slavery movement and civil rights.
Very good. I just wanted to make sure I had the venue's locations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alexander. Thank you for being here. That brings us to item 9 Alpha 4.
Second.
Second.
It's been, oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over 9A3. I apologize. Ms. Gray Jackson, do you still want to move to approve 9A3?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Is there objection to approval of 9 Alpha 3? Seeing and hearing none, that is approved. Ms. Gray Jackson. Is there a representative from, is Mr. O'Leary here? Yeah, all right, very good.
Oh, great, okay. A resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly honoring Michael J. O'Leary of Callan Associates. Whereas since before formal inception of the MOA Trust Fund in May 1999, Michael O'Leary, recently retired Executive Vice President of Callan Associates, has been a dedicated investment consultant advising the Finance Department, Mayor, and Municipal Assembly on all fundamental aspects of the MOA Trust Fund. And whereas Mike directly contributed to the MOA Trust Fund's governance, documents, and structure, including serving as a major contributing author to fundamental areas such as AMC 6.50060, investment policy, asset allocation, dividend policy, money manager selection, custodian bank selection, performance monitoring, and many other key areas in his role as primary consultant, resulting in over $104 million of dividends paid to date from the trust. And whereas starting in December 2006, Mike assumed an additional major role as the implementing consultant for a newly adopted investment approach applicable to municipal cash pool investments, and he served as a critical resource to the municipality in navigating through the Great Recession market crash of 2008 and its aftermath, such that the new approach to investing municipal cash pool investments produced over $58 million of income to date that would have otherwise not been realized. And whereas Mike and his colleagues at Callan further served the municipality over the years by providing premium quality investment consulting to other affiliated major investment funds, including the MOA Pre-Funding Investment Program and MOA 457 Deferred Comp Plan. And whereas Mike always exemplified the best traits the municipality could want in its investment consultant. For example, integrity, objectivity, frankness, keen insight, client-centric, long-term vision, dedication, soundness of opinion, calming demeanor, deep experience, diverse talent and intellect, and professionalism. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly resolves, Michael J. O'Leary of Cowan Associates is honored and sincerely thanked for his 15-year consulting relationship with the municipality of Anchorage and his invaluable contributions over the years to the establishment and success of the MOA Trust Fund and municipal cash pool investments, passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 10th day of June 2014.
Mr. Chair, my name is Dan Moore. I'm the city treasurer. I work with Mike O'Leary the entire time he's with the city. We also have Glenn Cipriano, who's the chair of the Investment Advisory Commission here tonight. Mike really served the city in an incredible way for all 15 years that he was with us. He is fully retired and happy, living in Denver, unable to make it tonight. But I really appreciate you fully reading this for the record, and he will very much appreciate this. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moore, and we appreciate your work too. So. All right, that brings us to item 9, Alpha 4.
Move to approve.
Second.
Item 9, Alpha 4 has been moved and seconded. Is there objection? Seeing and hearing none, I believe Mr. Evans, are you reading?
Sure. That's Assembly Resolution.
Mr. Wilson, come on down, by the way.
2014-151, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and honoring Richard G. Wilson for his service with the municipality of Anchorage. Whereas Richard G. Wilson, a native of San Diego, California, holds a BA in political science from Pomona College in Claremont and a Master's of Public Administration from Maxwell School at Syracuse University, and whereas during his nearly 40 years as an Alaska resident, Rich has lived an all-Alaskan experience, including crab fishing in the Bering Sea, owning a Homer fish processing and wholesale marketing company, serving as a grant writer for the Anchorage City Manager, serving as Cordova City Manager, and as a city administrator of St. George, where he oversaw completion of a commercial fishing port and increased marketing efforts of the Bering Sea fishing industry, for which the community received an All-American City Award. And whereas Rich served as development director at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport during the airport expansion and continues his small management consulting business, and during their adventures across Alaska, Rich and his wife Jan together raised 3 children. And whereas in May 2012, Mayor Dan Sullivan appointed Rich as port director to bring a calm, experienced, and competent leader to manage the daily operations at the port. During his time there, Rich effectively directed the staff, maintained port customer relations, focused on new business opportunities, and worked with the administration to maintain a positive public perception of this essential transportation facility. And whereas Rich was also a part of the mayor's team that analyzed and recommended a new course for the Port Intermodal Expansion Project. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly resolves that Richard G. Wilson is recognized and honored for serving as Anchorage Port Director and for his dedication and expertise in overseeing the Port of Anchorage, passed and approved by the Anchorage Municipal Assembly this 10th day of June, 2014.
Well, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Chairman and members of the Assembly, it is really an honor to be receiving this recognition. I really didn't expect anything of this kind, so thank you so much. I must say that you leaders of this community have a great port, and you have lots to look forward to in success in the future. And I can say from 2 years sitting there right in that front window looking out over the other port and watching the commerce and helping to work on commerce, added commerce coming to our community. We're here to serve not only this community but also the entire state. And I'm proud to wear this pin, and I'll keep it forever. And I thank you, Mr. Mayor, the team under you and the Assembly and the Port Commission and the work that they do as intermediaries with the community, and of course our business stakeholders who are fabulous business people and who keep the wheels running and are the heartbeat. And we ought to keep that in mind. When we do things for the port, we're doing things for our own economic future. So thank you for this, and I don't know what to say otherwise. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Happy retirement. Take a brief moment here. We had quite a few appointments tonight for some of the LRSAs and a couple of our advisory boards, and even I think we have confirmed somebody to appointment to one of our municipal agencies. So if you've been appointed to a board or a commission and want to come down and introduce yourself to us, we'd love to hear from you. Or if you're not here, we don't have to worry about it. All right. Well, then we'll move on to item, I believe, 9.
Mr. Chairman, point of privilege. Mr. Wheeler, it might be appropriate time now to mention your two hard workers in the audience so we get to know their faces. I would like to have them come to the microphone and just briefly describe their duties. We have time tonight.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Sorry. Gentlemen, this is a surprise for you, but we have legal interns that apply and are interviewed and come up and work for us every summer. This summer, we're fortunate to have 4 in our civil department and 3 in prosecution. We bring them to the assembly meetings over the course of the summer, and tonight we have 2 with us. Nick and Colby, if you would want to come up to the microphone and introduce yourselves and let us know where you're from and what school you go to.
It's really not a want. You get to come up.
This was not part of the deal. My name is Nick Oglesby. I'm from the Seattle University School of Law. I'm here this summer taking a class that's put on by Seattle U Law, and happy to be a legal intern in the municipality legal office from Snohomish, Washington, a couple minutes north of Seattle. So first time in the state. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, sir.
My name's Colby Stewart. I got my undergraduate degree at University of Alaska Anchorage here, so I'm well familiar with Anchorage. I'm currently attending Lewis and Clark Law School down in Portland, Oregon. It's a pleasure to be back up here.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Wheeler.
Sorry, I should mention that today I received an email from the Seattle U, and they are announcing they have reached a cooperative agreement with APU to start a law school program here. It'll be apparently for third-year students and summers, and they're going to have an open house here in the next few weeks. But that should be a very interesting program, keep more kids in-state studying law, at least during their third year in their summer courses.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Very interesting. Clerk's asked me to seek a motion to return to the consent agenda and take up item 9 Bravo 4 to confirm that we wanted to approve the S version. So may I please have a motion to take up item 9 Bravo 4, the S version?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any question about that? Okay, let's go ahead and vote on that, please. This is voting on the S version. Yeah. Mr. Peterson, have you pressed your button yet, sir? And Mr. Trainee, since yours isn't working, would you care to vote yes or no on this one?
Yes.
Okay. So the S version is approved. That brings us to item 9 Bravo 6. Mr. Evans.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence on this. I just want to take a moment to tilt at a bit of a windmill. This is a very minor issue. It's just the $24,000 pass-through to fund some of the overtime for our police officers and some other costs. associated with the Click It or Ticket program, and very little contribution other than that from the city. I just wanted to voice my concern about this type of program anyway, and our participation. And I realize it's not an Anchorage program, it's a federal and state program, but to the extent that we spend any kind of money or any kind of police officer time on an issue that is essentially just a media campaign to make people aware that they have to use their seatbelts, it's already a law. I think it's a good law. I think people should use their seatbelts, don't get me wrong. But I think, spending any additional money on this when we're already kind of stretched on our police resources, I believe, I just have an objection to this sort of overweening government program, and just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Honeman.
And I have to speak to the other side. I believe it's a safety issue, and as long as it's funded by NHTSA and pass-through money from the state for its Department of Transportation and Safety Highway, I think it's a good use of the state dollars that we receive through the grant. Thank you.
Mr. Evans.
And I realize the money comes from above, but I think all the money spent on it, no matter where it comes from, state, federal, or otherwise, is somebody's money actually. It's money that comes from somewhere that we just don't create it, and I think there are better uses for it.
Thank you very much. And with that, please proceed to vote.
Actually, I'm abstaining.
And so that passes unanimously. I'm guessing, Mr. Evans, you didn't get dinged by the enforcement at 6th and A Street? Okay. That brings us to item 9, Bravo 9. Mr. Peterson.
Move to approve.
Did you press your button, sir?
No, actually,
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you in queue, Mr. Honeman?
well, yeah, we'd like to move this to be postponed and set for a public hearing on July 8th.
Which one?
9B9.
Okay.
9 Bravo 9.
Well, can you make a motion to change the public hearing?
Correct.
We don't have
There
a
was
public
none.
hearing scheduled, so.
So I'd just like to make a motion that we set this matter for a public hearing on July 8th, so postpone it till
July 8th. Okay. Mr. Honeman, do you just want to postpone it to July 8th, or do we need a public hearing? Is there a particular reason?
I believe we need a public hearing, and the reason, Mr. Chairman, I'll speak, Mr. Peterson and I talked about this earlier today. About 2 months back, we had the developers for this property that came in, and we're talking about building this particular type of structure as a drive-through restaurant as a speculation. They had no particular vendor or business in mind at that time. It is in a very tight location at the corner of Creekside Drive and DeBar Road, and it's in a little strip that's about 60 feet wide, and it has to co-locate a driveway and a parking lot at Walgreens. And the community council was concerned at that time. Then it was believed that it would be across from the Walgreens into the treat area that has much more room and better access and parking, ingress, egress. So I believe the community council will meet.
Okay. Mr. Honeman, I appreciate the background, but we're getting into the heart of the matter here.
Right.
So the answer is you want a public hearing on this?
Yes.
Okay. Would you please press your button that you'd like a public hearing on this?
I thought I did, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And may I have a second on that? Somebody else better do it, because Dick can't.
Thank you, man.
All right. Is there objection to setting a public hearing for this item on July 8th? Hearing none, we'll see that back in about a month. That brings us to item 9, Bravo 12. Ms. Domboski pulled that.
Move to approve.
Second.
May I go ahead, Mr. Chair?
By all means, can you hit your button? We had to reset the screen there for us. Thank you. Mr. Honeman, you were the second. Ms. Domboski.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I pulled this because we've gone round and round with the Chester Creek realignment issue, and I am a fan of a couple things. One thing being public process, and I want to see the East District plan completed, but I know how much public process has gone through with the Chester Creek realignment, and I'm not really interested in delaying that project. I recognize this is a resolution, but it's the point of it, in my opinion. Do we know from somebody from planning or the administration when, I know the draft Eastside plan is out, but do we know when we expect it to be completed?
Welcome, Mr. Weaver.
Good evening. The Planning Commission approved the plan last Monday, and it'll be coming forward to the Assembly within the next 45 days.
Great. All right, thank you.
Mr. Weaver, before you run off, Mr. Starr, go ahead.
In some information provided to us by the mayor in a separate AIM, it talks about the specific parcel being subject to another sort of small site project plan, or what did you call it? It's the first time I've heard that verbiage. Could you describe that for
Mr. Chair, Ms. Starr, it's identified, I believe, on pages 32 and 33 of the plan. It talks about a subsequent analysis with respect to the front portion of that property as to its final use. There's a little bit of confusion there with the Parks and Recs Commission resolution referencing the second scenario, which had a little bit of commercial component to it, but from our analysis, it should require an ultimate review with respect to parks in the community. Is there a deficiency in parks in the community? We know we have a deficiency in residential, deficient in commercial, and now today it appears that it's also industrial, which what that means is that we really need to make very efficient use of every piece of property in the community.
So when the district plan, and I haven't read page 33 or 44 in the draft document, but the idea that that plan does come out, it's going to be absent of planning information related to this parcel itself?
That process will not have taken place. It'll still be a recommendation. It'll be before the commission adopted it as a recommendation that if a subsequent analysis take place for that particular property, and unless the assembly modifies that would still be in the plan.
So the proposed realignment of the creek that kind of borders the commercial parcel that's on that property, if in fact that goes forward, in your planning opinion, does it negate some opportunities that potentially that land could be used for, because we've now since moved the water?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Starr, I don't think it would negate it either way, whatever zoning district it would be finally determined to be. You can look at the plat that was just recently recorded. There's specific configuration for that creek that has to take place, so it doesn't presuppose anything. We're, in the planning process, just basically said it needed further analysis to determine its actual use, because the back third is already dedicated park.
The work session did a boundary realignment of the creek that mirrored the commercial property. It kind of did a turn, valving system that was put in place. It kind of did the turn, followed the perimeter of the commercial, and then came back down towards the primary culvert that was to be constructed in there. When that's done, that hill that people would want to sled on in the future park would be probably unusable because you crashed into the creek. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
The sledding hill, my first hearing about that was probably 30 days ago. It may have been around the community a lot longer than that, but I'm not really, I can't speak to the impact with respect to that sledding hill.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Mr. Honeman.
Mr. Weaver,
sorry, you weren't done, Mr. Bester?
No.
I apologize.
Thank you. May I just for a second?
Please.
Thank you. I'm done, Mr. Weaver. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm not sure if anybody else. When I read this resolution, I recognize that there are many in the community and many of Mr. Honeman's and Mr. Peterson's area that would like to see this entire parcel be a park. I get that. I understand the premise behind the resolution. I absolutely see where they're going. But I have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Chugach Eagle River. And part of that discussion, which is absent in these documents, is the fact that we used area-wide general funds to buy this parcel and promised taxpayers we'd pay them back. So with that in mind, I still support the Creek realignment. I still think the East District plan should be vetted. I think the topic should come up, but we need to have a robust discussion about what we really owe all the taxpayers. And so I won't be supporting the resolution, but I do absolutely support the East District plan going forward, and I look forward to seeing that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Domboski. Mr. Honeman.
Mr. Starr brings a good point, and thank you, Ms. Domboski, for the opportunity to comment. And once again, we're looking at a new term that I don't believe I've heard before either, and that is having a small site selection. I mean, they've now identified, and I'm saying they because, Mr. Weaver, I don't know how often you've been coming to the meetings. It seems like you're here just about every time. And so at least last fall, and prior to that, your point was spot on. It's the first time you've heard of it 30 days ago, but it's been being talked about and been trying to be talked about for years. And so the whole issue is that the creek probably needs to be realigned for a whole host of reasons, but it doesn't necessarily need to follow the route that's being proposed. And so the community wants the discussion, and I think that's the reason that we need this resolution, is to have the discussion as to why it needs to be a certain direction on that parcel and where that route goes. There's nobody arguing that the creek likely needs to be realigned. There's been a lot of federal and state agencies that have said that it doesn't necessarily have to be the proposed realignment that's being, if you will, supported heavily by the administration. So the very concern that we have is that we're moving the ball. And I want the ball out in the light of day so we can have a clear discussion with the community, and so that they don't feel like they're being told one thing and shuffled to another. And it's the frustration that's been mounting for years, a decade or better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Honeman. Ms. Johnston.
I wasn't going to support this resolution only because we've gone through this process for 2 years and the discussion. But then I do like to defer to assembly members from their district. And it is a resolution, and I feel they have the right to ask for consideration, and that's what I see this resolution as being. I think we have had many public hearings. I'll be happy to take part in another one if you feel that that's what you need. And so I'll be supporting it mainly because it is your district, and I respect that.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize I came kind of late to the game, but it was my understanding under one of the work sessions we went to that some of the work on the rechanneling of the creek has already begun, some preliminary work at least, and I just wanted to know from the administration if that's in fact true, and if we delay this now or change the course that was previously agreed to, are there additional costs involved? Thank you.
If I may answer that question, Mr. Chair. The answer to the question is the design is complete, so we spent all the money on we spent quite a deal of money on the design, all of the public hearings that's taken place over the years, all of the consultant services that we've had, and all of the changes and everything that we've had to make to meet federal as well as state requirements. So yes, money has been spent. The next phase is construction. Money has not been spent yet on construction, but that is scheduled for this summer.
Thank you, Mr. Vacalis. Mr. Evans, anything else? Okay. All right, seeing no one else in queue, please proceed to vote. Mr. Trainee? Yes. Please record Mr. Trainee as a yes. So by a vote of 8 yeas and 3 nays, that motion carries. That brings us to item 9, Delta 18. I need somebody besides Mr. Starr to move that one, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Starr?
It's a change order. My company manages property that has one of these gates on it. The gate improvements for security at Merrill Field would directly impact the property that I manage, and I may have to consult, in fact, with the company doing the installation to get it right. So it's a direct impact on me, and I make money doing it. So in that regard, I just as soon not vote on it.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. And I believe we've excused you from participation on items like this in the past, so I will find that you can refrain from voting on this matter. You can step outside the gate for 2 seconds if you want. Any other comments on this one? Please proceed to vote. Yes. Mr. Trainee is a yes. So by a vote of 10 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 abstention, recusal, that motion carries. That brings us, I believe, to item 11A. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Gray Jackson moves to accept. Ms. Domboski is a second. Ms. Gray Jackson, I seem to recall you asked for a little more detail. Do you have what you need?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we all have what is required by the code. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing and hearing none, please proceed to vote. Mr. Trainee votes yes, and that motion carries unanimously. That brings us to item 12A. Ms. Nordland, come on up. We'll do everything we can to keep you from catching up.
So hello, I'm Beth Nordland. I'm Executive Director of the Anchorage Park Foundation, and we try to get here twice a year to let you know what kind of investment the Anchorage Park Foundation is putting in to the parks and trails in this fair city, and also let you know what's happening in construction all over town, park and trail construction all over town for this summer. This summer we have 33 park and trail projects underway, and those are all depicted on the map that you have in front of you. But first, let me spend just a brief moment in time telling you about the Anchorage Park Foundation investment. We're a public-private partnership. We partner very closely with the Parks and Recreation Department to get the projects done. We work with volunteers, we work with contractors, we use resources from the federal government, the state government, the municipal government, and as well as private resources. We always say we think we're engaging non-traditional partners, and we stretch a dollar and we attract grants and introduce new donors to projects. So we are producing park and trail results all over town. If you'll see on page 2 of the memo, we've got our list of how much we've raised since the inception of the Park Foundation. We were created in October of 2004. Since that time, we have raised $26.5 million for Anchorage Parks. You have that delineated in $8.7 million in private dollars, about $7 million in volunteer time and materials, about $2.5 in Rasmussen Foundation grants, and $7.5 in state capital funds, and $835,000 in federal funding. Since I created this memo and distributed it to the clerk, the capital budget was signed for this year, and we have $920,000 in the state capital budget for projects that will mostly be built in 2015. So today we'll look at this map and talk about the 33 projects that we've got going for this summer. And many of those, hopefully you'll see there'll be something in everyone's district. 7 playground projects, something for everyone. Ocean View Park is getting an upgrade of their playground and their picnic structure. They're having a zip line. Is that in your district? Okay, Mr. Evans. And also Stevenson Park will have a brand new playground that looks like a treehouse. So we're very excited for a couple of those. And in Balto Sepola Park, it will be completely accessible. So wheelchairs will be able to roll along the surface, and we're very excited about that bright new shiny thing in the Turnagain area. We also have multiple projects that are youth employment and park projects and neighborhood park fix-its. I try very hard to invite each of you to volunteer at the neighborhood park fix-its. With 33 park projects, that's kind of a full-time job, just trying to communicate with you on what to get out to, but it would be, yeah, it would be really great if you could take an opportunity to come to the projects when they come to your district. It's a good opportunity to shake hands with the volunteers that live in your area, and people love it, and there's free food. It's a great time for all.
We've got a few questions for you, Ms. Nordland.
Okay.
Ms. Johnston.
I look forward very much to celebrating the 10th anniversary next year. And I hope in that celebration, as you know, that the two main drivers and founders of the Park Foundation, Vic Malazzi and Jeff Clark, will be honored, because it's through their foresight and their just unbelievable volunteerism. And I have to say that these were two people that did not have children themselves, and what they did for this community is absolutely amazing. I also want to do a shout out to the Park Foundation and to Mr. Rada, because if you ride your bike, as I do, around this city, the difference I've seen in the 7 years on the assembly of our parks is phenomenal. They've become community centers, and you've reached out. Your parks are now being used by all aspects of this community, and you feel like you're going through a cultural maze at times. I mean, particularly in the smells coming from the barbecues. It's absolutely wonderful, and I think it's our shining moment for the community. I think our parks are phenomenal.
I think you meant to say aromas, correct? I think you meant aromas, correct? Yeah. Mr. Honeman.
Well, I too want to thank you, Beth, for bringing us the map. I guess the only thing that I would like is maybe to shift it a little to the left, where the inlet is not so big on the paper, and so we get a little more East Anchorage, because some of those parks.
More East Anchorage, got it.
And then I am looking forward to hearing about some of the opportunities I see, like Centennial and Dave Rose Park. I see a playground at Dave Rose, but there's a few others that it has symbols, but I'm not sure the project. So I look forward to meeting with you offline on this and trying to see if I can get to some of those opportunities.
Well, let me just tell you that Dave Rose Park, we secured some federal money, and we're putting it all together. We're going to try to go out to bid next month because we just got all the money together. But our plan is for it to be an accessible playground, and it's in South Russian Jack, right? Is that what you call it, or South Mountain View?
Russian Jack.
Yeah, and so it'll be fully accessible, and it will have an aviation theme. And we're looking, the dates are not fleshed out, but we very well could be cutting a ribbon at the end of this summer.
Awesome. And I share Ms. Johnston's view of our visions with Parks Foundation, and I thank you for stating at the outset, at the beginning, where you said, you seek federal monies and state monies. This is a great way to leverage, much like an earlier resolution we had, to use some funding that's available is to do great things for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Honeman. Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank you, Beth, for doing such a phenomenal job always. And I really appreciate the board, and I want to thank them too. And just a couple of projects for Mr. Trainee in my district, the Cuddy Park Accessible Playground, the Campbell Park Playground, just to name a few. And we just really, really, I know I can speak for Mr. Trainee, appreciate everything that you do and everything that you've done throughout the year. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Gray-Jackson. Mr. Steele.
Fantastic asset to the community. When I first got on, I was happy to participate in some of the new playgrounds that you had upgraded last year. And our parks, as Jennifer said, is such a great asset to the community. There's been articles in the paper about how the tourists are using it, about how it contributes to the community's status as a great livable city. And your organization is is primarily responsible because of the impetus that you bring, the added value, the cooperative nature between parks and volunteers and community councils and everybody. The city is looking better. I didn't get everything that I had hoped for, but I got some great things in our community, and I certainly appreciate all the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to respond a little bit to tell you at the end of this report, which I hope you got a chance to take a look at, the Anchorage Park Foundation is very involved with the Live, Work, Play initiative of Anchorage Economic Development Corporation, and we are one of the 7 areas of focus that they've chosen to focus on for Live, Work, Play, and that's the Trails Initiative. Look forward to more on that, but it's very exciting to us that the business community has embraced the idea that trails contribute to making Anchorage a great place to live, work, and play. They attract talent and retain talent, which is what creates a vibrant economy. So to have the connection with the business community and having embraced that concept is really important. And we're excited about that partnership.
And Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to echo, when we came into office, one of the first things that we looked at was the report card that had just been completed on Anchorage parks, and it was a dismal report card, quite frankly. I mean, a lot of our parks were getting Ds and lower, and so the collaboration between Beth and her organization, our Parks Department, the Rasmussen Foundation, the success we've had with our legislators getting state grants, literally in I think a 5-year period. If we took another report card today, I think that report card was by the users of those parks. So it was really based on those folks that live in those neighborhoods and utilize those facilities. And there's been a transformation in that 5-year period that has just been amazing. And when we get accolades, like with Kiplinger naming us the 9th best city in America, one of the criteria they look at, as Beth mentioned, is not just trails, but your parks, how you maintain your parks, how accessible they are, how user-friendly they are to children, and we're just getting top marks in all those areas. And Beth, you deserve a lot of credit for that. John and his team, and again, all the private funders, and I can't say enough about the volunteers as well, because that volunteer labor makes a big difference. So I extend, as the members have done, a thank you to all you've done.
On the public-private partnership that we have with the Parks and Recreation Department, I just want you all to know how that works on the ground. We meet every Tuesday morning and we talk about what's happening that week, what's on the docket for the rest of the summer, and we put together these projects together. The landscape architects help us scope the projects. We do the press releases, and we're working very closely together. And I've started to email the whole team, and we call ourselves a public-private partnership because we're really exploring trying to have joint values, right? Because we're all pulling on the same way. And so I want to brag about the city's participation in this, and it's not always easy. I mean, we're a nonprofit, they're the city, they're the landowners, they have a lot of responsibility, but we do work together because they get the big picture, and we bring a lot of resources to the table.
Well, thank you very much, Beth. We do appreciate it, and please say hi to Jim and Ella for us.
Thank you.
If I could briefly have a motion to go back up the agenda, I just want to have a clarifying motion that we approve the A version of item 11A. That was the new version of the AIM. So, Ms. Gray-Jackson, if you'd be kind enough to make that motion to clarify that we approved the A version of that memorandum. And Mr. Evans is a second. Yeah, just have a quick vote on that. We'll keep moving. Everybody but Dick can vote. Well, we have to exclude him.
Just put me down as yes.
And presuming there's no objection, we'll just jump into our Okay, that brings us to item 14A, AO 2014-73, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly to implement provisions of Proposition 9 passed by the voters at the April 1, 2014 election by authorizing the Anchorage Police Department employees designated by the Chief of Police to enforce parking violations, including impoundment and towing ordinances, and amending sections of Anchorage Municipal Code Title 9 accordingly.
Move to approve.
Not quite so quick.
Oh, we have public hearing,
This,
don't we?
this is a public hearing.
Well, they voted on it. It's not public.
This is a public hearing. If you'd like to speak to us on this matter, please come on down. All right. Seeing and hearing no one, public hearing is
Ow,
closed.
I move to approve.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, please proceed to vote.
Except for me.
Except for Dick. So that passes unanimously. That brings us to item 14B, AO 2014-64. Not that one. An ordinance amending the zoning map and improving the rezoning from R2M, multifamily residential district, to B3SL, general business district, for the Benson subdivision, Block 1, west half of Lot 2, containing approximately 0.11 acres, generally located west of Spenard Road and north of Aspen Drive in Anchorage. This is a public hearing. If you wish to speak to us on this matter, please come forward. Sir, come on down. Welcome. If you kindly state your name and tell us.
My name is Steve Agney, and I'm representing the owner of Green Properties. Chairman Flynn and members of the Assembly, as the Planning Department noted in their write-up, this case actually started back in 1975, oddly enough, when some owners created a deed lot. That's where you don't subdivide, but you convey by a mere deed of one half of a lot adjacent to a lot that was clearly being used for commercial purposes. And so over the last, 30 plus years, this property has been used and actually taxed as commercial. And I would ask if I could approach the chair and just show you the property records for this property. So as we know, going through Anchorage now, there's, of course, less land to develop, and so this owner was responsibly looking to redevelop the property that he has always paid taxes on and has been considered to be commercial. And then upon research and inquiry of the Planning Department, this incorporated half lot that was created by the deed in 1975 was determined to be R2. So what we are doing here today is, of course, first to the Planning Commission requesting the rezone of the half lot to be one contiguous B3 lot so that this owner can go ahead and redevelop it and continue to the improvements on Spenard Road.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Seeing, hearing none, appreciate your
Thank you for your time.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to us on this matter? Seeing and hearing no one, public hearing is now closed. What is the wish of the body? Been moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing and hearing none, please proceed to vote.
There you go. Your area. See a problem?
Yes.
There's no problem with that. It's just kind of odd.
So that carries unanimously. That brings us to item 14C, AO 2014-63, an ordinance adopting the official streets and highways plan as an element of the comprehensive plan and amending Anchorage Municipal Code Title 21, Land Use Planning. Old code expires December 31 of 2014. Section 2105.030E, and amending Anchorage Municipal Code Title 21, Land Use Planning. New code effective January 1, 2014. Table 21.01-1. This is a public hearing, and we do intend to continue this to our next meeting, but if you wish to speak to us now, please come forward. Seeing, hearing no one. Mr. Starr?
I'd move to continue the public hearing to June 24th.
Press your button, sir.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and second. Is there objection to continue the public hearing on this item? Seeing, hearing none, we'll take that up at our next meeting. Our next item is item 14D, AO 2014-71, an ordinance in Anchorage Municipal Assembly designating boundaries for the Fairview East Downtown Revitalization Area as a deteriorated area under Anchorage Municipal Code, Chapter 12.35, with an area of findings to encourage and support redevelopment using certain tax abatement incentives authorized in Chapter 12.35 and state law. This is a public hearing. However, we do intend to continue this one to July 8th to let the administration's version of this catch up with it.
Maybe different from this one.
And it will be different from this one. But if you wish to speak to us on this matter, please come forward. Seeing and hearing no one, may I have a motion, please? We need
Move to continue till the 20, or mainly 24th.
July 8th, sir.
July 8th.
Been moved and seconded. Is there objection to continuing this public hearing to July 8th? Seeing and hearing none, we'll see this one next month. That brings us to item 14E, 2014-72, an ordinance authorizing a 7-year lease between the municipality of Anchorage and Alaska Pediatric Therapy, an Alaskan limited liability company for 1,935 square feet of office space identified as Suite 179 in the Eagle River Town Center, located at 12,001 Business Boulevard in Eagle River. This is a public hearing. If you wish to speak to us on this matter, please come forward. Seeing and hearing no one, public hearing is closed. What is the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing and hearing no one, please proceed to vote.
Madam Clerk, reflect me as a yes.
And that carries unanimously.
Jump on everybody, but might as well.
That brings us to item 14F, AR 2014-134, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly, of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $172,000 in proceeds from the sale of Unit 3 of the Eagle River Town Center to the Area-Wide General Fund 101 as a contribution, and appropriating said contribution to the Area-Wide General CIP Fund 401, all within the real estate development for tenant improvements in the Eagle River Town Center. This is a public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak to us on this matter? Seeing and hearing no one, what is the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Starr.
Mr. Vacalis, is the tenant putting any tenant improvement dollars into the site improvements?
No, sir.
Okay, so if the requirement's to go over $172,000, you'd come back to the Assembly for additional money?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. I see no one else in queue. Please proceed to vote.
Madam Clerk, reflect me as a yes. Thank you.
And that motion carries unanimously. That brings us to item 14G, AR 2014-136, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage appropriating $138,469 to the Federal Grants Fund for 241 and $979 to the Public Transportation Capital Fund 485, all as a Federal Transit Administration grant when tendered from the U.S. Department of Transportation, and appropriating $20,363 to the Federal Grants Fund 241 and $338 from the Public Transportation Capital Fund as contributions from the 2014 operating budget, Area-Wide General Fund 101, in support of said grant, all within the Public Transportation Department. This is a public hearing. If you wish to speak to us on this matter, please come forward. Seeing and hearing no one, what is the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Been moved and seconded. Anyone wish to speak? Seeing no one in queue, please proceed to vote.
I'm a yes. It's going to be a hobbit.
That carries unanimously. That brings us to special orders. Ms. Domosky, do you have anything you need to add on the Everhart matter, or could we just work on Mr. Starr's disclosure? Okay. So, and I usually don't do this, but I'm actually going to read this one because we're in an adjudicatory process here. So at our previous meeting on May 20, Mr. Starr from District 2, Seat C, disclosed in general terms his potential conflict in the Eberhard versus MOA remand from the Superior Court with respect to diminishing the public trust, which is an element of the Ethics Code. I made the request that Mr. Starr and I review his concerns with Special Counsel Joseph Levesque, because this body does not excuse its members from participation lightly, and many tough decisions come before this body. Not all of them are so much fun to decide. After hearing from Mr. Starr and with the benefit of Special Counsel Levesque's independent advice and experience in these matters, I requested that Mr. Starr prepare his disclosure for a ruling at tonight's Assembly meeting. He'll read that into the record momentarily. Because of Bill's significant involvement in the project elements under review in the adjudicatory process, his relationships with the plaintiffs, and the email evidence thereof, I believe it is reasonably inferred that Bill has a conflict under the public trust element in Anchorage Municipal Code 1.15035E, and upon disclosure, his participation may be excused. We'll follow this process. Mr. Starr will make his disclosure. I will ask if any members have questions or discussion regarding that disclosure. I'll make a ruling, either to excuse or direct him to participate. That ruling is subject to a vote if the members so wish. That means, so anybody who disagrees with my ruling can raise their hand, or if you just want to affirm it via a vote, we can do it that way too. And I have the option of putting it to the vote if I want to dodge responsibility. So, Mr. Starr, please proceed with your disclosure, and the written copy will be filed by the clerk with the record on remand.
Sure. As Assembly Member for District 2, Seat C, Eagle River, Chugiak, J-Bar, and a small part of Muldoon, I, Bill Starr, submit the following disclosure with respect to the Eberhardt versus the MOA remand from the Superior Court. My disclosure of conflicts in the pending Eberhardt versus MOA remand is also accompanied with a formal request to be excused from participation in this matter before the Assembly. My conflict is not of the customary financial disclosure. I have no personal financial relation to the properties involved in the special assessment districts, nor do I draw direct income related to my association with various parties in the matter pending. I feel, however, that I cannot approach the Assembly task in this adjudicatory matter with an unbiased perspective nor totally objective thinking. I was previously significantly active in mitigating a solution and brokering information among the residents who are now parties involved in this lawsuit. Consequently, I am predisposed in my mindset because I paid so much attention to this matter when it was coming before the Assembly. I have a predisposition set in my mind a final outcome that I believe would not be overcome through testimony and weighing of evidence presented in the upcoming case. Additionally, while neither the mere appearance of a close association of various parties of the lawsuit nor campaign contributions alone are the determining grounds for disqualification, I disclose these also that prior to learning of the remand during conflict training on March 5th of 2014, Chuck Smalley was engaged in my re-election campaign and was named as a sponsor of a fundraiser on my behalf. Also, the other named parties of this remand, some of the other named parties of this remand attended this event. As I am a developer in the trades, similar to Mr. Spinelli, he and I periodically engage MOA processes and building challenges in such a manner that these historical conversations may also have an influence on my view of the specifics in this case. From my professional work outside the Assembly, I have a significant level of understanding in such construction matters as detailed in the Eberhardt versus MOA controversy, and have my own pre-hearing opinion based on appropriate or inappropriate MOA resolve of the matter previously in front of the Assembly. In conformity with disclosure and public interest requirements of the Municipal Ethics Code and consistent with advice from Special Counsel Joe Levesque in this matter, I seek to avoid diminishing the public trust in the process and formally request to be excused from participation in all matters relating to Eberhardt versus the MOA.
Thank you very much, Mr. Starr. Based on that disclosure and the discussion that you and I had with Mr. Levesque, I'm going to rule that you will be excused from participation in this matter. Are there any questions or discussion for Mr. Starr or on that ruling?
No, I agree with you.
Seeing, hearing none, that brings us to public comment. If there is anybody who wishes to address us on any matter that has not yet come before us this evening, please come on down. Seeing, hearing no one, I'll take a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, Ms. Johnston?
I feel greatly remiss in my kudos as far as the parks and the Parks Foundation, because Mr. Hall has been on that Park Foundation board, I think, since the very beginning, and I would like to call him out as being a great community servant. Thank you.
Mr. Hall, you are hereby condemned as being an outstanding public servant. Now I'll take a motion.
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We are adjourned.